All right, so welcome to the welcome to the, our 29th talk. We're coming up to our 30th talk next weekend, where we'll have the the architects of Clubhouse on next week. But for today, we're going to be talking about what is the metaverse and are the opportunities it presents for architects. As you can see, it's just the three of us. It's myself, Guillaume, and Faisal on the stage today. This one's going to be a pretty free flow, open discussion, but Faisal is going to kind of be our our kind of internal guest, as this is one space where I know he's kind of been involved with Elusa and a few other things. And of course, we actually didn't plan this, did we, Faisal and Guillaume? But like this week, Zuckerberg came out with his metaverse. Facebook has rebranded as just Meta, right? It's just Meta.
Yeah.
I've also like seen some other kind of. I think there's been some architecture, some stuff going on in the architecture space with Metaverse. So I think it's kind of an interesting one. I know we've touched on this a little bit before with the AR VR discussion. It kind of ended up in the Metaverse, as these things do. But yeah, I think this is an interesting time to touch on this subject. But Faisal, I don't know if I don't want to throw you in at the deep end here, but do you want to set out what is the metaverse for people that are in the crowd that are kind of like, I think I know what it is, or what's your take on what the metaverse is? And
Oh
also,
man, that's the $1 million question, right? What is the
yeah,
metaverse?
yeah, what is this
The,
thing?
the truth is, the
Or
truth is,
maybe,
no
I
one
mean,
actually knows
yeah,
what the
maybe
metaverse is.
maybe the
But
three of us could start by like saying what we think the metaverse is, or like what is perceived. But yeah, Faisal, do you want to kick
sure.
us off?
So I often talk to investors for Elucer, and I have to sort of explain what the metaverse is for those who don't know. So I'm gonna try to do that. So
I like it.
I often like to define it as the Internet 2.0. So imagine trying to explain what the Internet is to someone living in the 1960s. It's almost impossible, right? Almost inconceivable. And that's what the metaverse is at the moment. Even those who might be deep in the sort of research and the tech side of the metaverse in terms of social interactions. So imagine, the way we interact on social media today through whether it's audio on Clubhouse or it's, pictures and videos on Instagram or, text on Twitter, PayPal or other digital, cryptocurrency, whatever, or it's the way uh, we buy things online, like on Amazon, or it's the way we watch things on Netflix or Hulu, or the way we listen to music on Spotify and Apple Music. All the sort of things that we do on the internet at the moment are all going to converge into a single all-in-one experience, a seamless experience with physical reality, and that is the metaverse. When everything becomes seamless through through physical and virtual, and everything is accessible on one platform, then we've reached the metaverse. At the moment, it's not something that one company could do. It's actually more of a concept. It's a concept sort of like the internet or sort of social media. And what Facebook did recently is they sort of presented their vision, and they changed their name, the holding company, to Meta, but they still have Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and then
Is,
their
is it me? I think we lost you a little bit there, Faisal. Is it me, Guillaume? Can you still?
I can hear you, Ollie, but I'm
Oh,
losing Faisal too.
all right. Well, we'll fill in till he. Oh, is he back?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
VPN's
You're
cutting
back.
out a little bit.
You're back.
Okay. So yeah, instead of sort of talking with avatars or with pictures on Clubhouse, in the metaverse you're gonna have avatars, and you're gonna be in a sort of a space, a virtual space where we can interact, we can sort of dance, we can see each other's expressions, etc. And it's gonna be a lot more immersive. Um, And maybe we can talk about sort of the problems with that later on, why that isn't happening today yet, and why people aren't sort of, running to the virtual world and so on. But the metaverse is basically internet 2.0. That's the best way I can describe it.
Interesting. Yeah. So it could also be called the Matrix, right? We're going we're
I
going
was
into the
gonna
Yeah.
ask.
Matrix. The movie that was like my favorite movie as a grown up. I think I used to rent that like every other week. But yeah, I was actually kind of a bit surprised when I saw the like what Facebook released. It's actually like I thought it was kind of a metaphor at the beginning, and they had this like virtual reality thing as a side piece, but it really was this virtual environment where like all of these things come together. The thing that I was also a little bit surprised, it just seemed so um, and this may sound stupid, but like unrealistic in that, like, I think from my understanding, a lot of the technology is just not quite there to do all those things. Like, I know he talked about, they obviously own Oculus. They're also talking about developing a new AR headset and stuff like that. Um, so I'm kind of curious to see, like, I wonder for them, how far is this in the future? Like, are we talking this is going to be released in the next couple of years? Are we going to be like spending all our time in this virtual in between space? It was quite interesting, but like the video just seems so cartoony. I couldn't connect with, like, I couldn't see myself uh, being in there, but maybe because I've not really experienced that before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually one of my critiques of the Facebook approach. The problem is they're kind of introducing the world to the metaverse, right? And I've spoken to a lot of sort of people within the sort of metaverse VR industry that have their own platforms and companies, and they're not too happy with Facebook and the way they've kind of co-opted the metaverse word or the meta word and sort of introduced people to the concept. And yeah, as you said, Ollie, one of the problems is they're focusing too much, I guess, on sort of turning Facebook and Instagram um, into the metaverse as opposed to actually creating or contributing to the metaverse itself. They're focusing too much on social media, which is why it's very cartoony. They're focusing too much on sort of creating these fun avatars that you could sort of play around with in this VR space. But there's so much more to the metaverse than just that, right? And I guess maybe that's an opportunity for another company or another platform. If I can plug Illuser here or any other, metaverse platform
Go
to,
ahead,
to
man. Go
compete
ahead.
with Facebook. But yeah, you're completely right, Ollie. I agree with that critique. But it's interesting to see where Facebook takes us because, to be honest, even with all the critiques, they are the sort of perfect company to lead in this direction because they have everything. They have the database, they have the users, they have the sort of products. They have Oculus, they have the collab with Ray-Ban, the Facebook Ray-Ban collab. So they have everything integrated in the company to sort of test out this metaverse thing that we're all sort of interested in.
Yeah. Also, just as we're getting into this is kind of like a free flow. We are by no means experts in the metaverse. So if there's anyone out in the audience that is an expert or someone wants to come up, uh, raise your hand.
Yeah,
As
I've
we're
just invited Nicole. Hopefully she's free and she can come up. That would be
cool,
great to.
cool.
Oh, hey Nicole.
Hey, Nicole. I see we got Ahmed and Nicole come up. I don't
Hi
know
everybody.
if you guys want to jump in already, but yeah, great to have you on.
Yes,
Ahmed,
I have
I
a
saw
question.
you came up
Yes.
here first, so do you have a
Okay.
question or something you want to add in already?
Y- Yes. First, hi all. Hello, Faisal. How are you? I hope you are okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Faisal,
How's it going?
hi. How are you? Faisal, I wanted to ask you to clear to us what is the difference between the metaverse that Mark talked about and the Second Life. You know, Second Life. 10, 15 years ago, it was online. It was a great thing. So, what is the difference between Metaverse and Second Life?
So it depends who you ask, but some people would classify Second Life as a metaverse, and there's other ones. There's Alt Space, there's Decentraland. There's a lot of different. Even Fortnite to some extent could be classified under the metaverse. So there are like many different platforms that could be classified under that. I personally wouldn't call them metaverses. I would call them social VR platforms. Because again, the metaverse is much bigger than just having avatars in a VR space that can, do cool things. I think once we reach full immersion, then we can call it a metaverse. But the main difference, I guess, with Facebook is going to integrate everything that they do into this. So they're going to integrate Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. They have a cryptocurrency. I can't remember what it's called, like Odeon or something like that. That they're going to integrate into that, and they have the VR goggles, Oculus, that they're going to integrate. So they have a lot of different products and softwares that they're going to integrate into the metaverse and platforms that I think will take the whole metaverse experience to the next level. Second Life doesn't have most of those things. So I think that's the main limitation with Second Life and Decentraland and Altspace and these other platforms.
Thank you very much. Also, I wanna talk about what I read the last 2 days about the metaverse. The problem will be, or the obstacles will be, how to emerge or go from like Facebook metaverse to Google metaverse to Second Life metaverse to Fortnite, Roblox. A lot of, I think they talked about the problem of connecting every metaverse worlds together. I think this is an important point to talk about. If you know something about it, please tell us, Faisal, Oli, and Gloom. I don't know how to say your name. Okay, thank you very much.
Was the question what is the difference between them? Sorry, I didn't
I
get the
think
whole
Mm,
question.
how to connect them, I guess. But yeah, I think
Oh, right,
yes,
right.
connecting them.
yeah, that's a tricky one. I think the answer is I've no idea. Uh, unless there's like I don't know if like the Facebook one becomes so big that everyone connects to the Facebook. In the same way that like I guess when you log into to another website and it's like you can log in through this or you can just use your Facebook profile or something like that. I guess there'd have to be some way to port between the metaverses and stuff like that.
So
Unless
I guess that's the reason that you can't call Facebook's Horizon a
right,
metaverse, right? Because that's the main critique with people calling certain platforms metaverses. Because the idea of a metaverse is that it's an all-in-one experience, right? Kind of like the internet.
right,
You don't have Bing or Yahoo outside the internet, right? It's not like Google's the only internet, and then you have other. In the internet in encompasses everything basically, and that's what the metaverse is supposed to do. So you don't have like many different metaverses. The metaverse is meant to be an all-in-one single seamless experience. So,
I
but
see.
I do wanna also defer to Nicole. Maybe Nicole can help
Yeah,
answer this question
it
because
seems we have
she's also another expert in
we've
this.
been graced with the presence of a metaverse expert. So thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. Um, yeah, I don't know. Oh, we've lost her. She's off. Oh, she's back.
She just messaged me. I think she's having problems with connection. Hey
She's
Nicole, can you hear
jumping
us?
in and out from the metaverse.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you. Yeah, so thanks, guys. I am Nicole Maxwell, and I am one half of the team that is creating the Black Metaverse along with our community. And yeah, Metaverse is getting a whole lot of buzz here lately. Facebook has introduced thousands to the concept of the metaverse, and it's something that we've been talking about here on Clubhouse for several months now. And it's really great to see such energy and such interest that has been piqued by Facebook. Um, but I think that there are two ways to skin a cat and multiple ways to skin cats when it comes to the metaverse. For me, I think the metaverse is well, for the Black metaverse, the metaverse is really the combination of all things in the decentralized space. So it includes the blockchain, it includes cryptocurrency, NFTs, and virtual real estate and things like that, but also includes the concepts of Web 3.0, and that is the ability to get up and walk around inside the internet. And so when you mix all those things together and you add on components like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and experienced reality, like you get the metaverse. And that's really, to me, what it is. It's a place where we can be and live life in an augmented way or a different type of way that really lets us expand our minds way more than you can in reality. For example, I can have an experience where, I might go through Redwood Forest. Diedrich Reed is somebody who's built a metaverse, and he also built the space that Fasal mentioned, which is called Alt Space, which is of sorts a collection of metaverses. Um, but he's built a new experience called the Meta World, and that's a project that's been 5 years in the making and in its creation. It's based around the idea of a real world simulation, so you can actually walk through the trees and walk through the forest with your avatar. Your avatar in this case is something called a metahuman or a digital twin. And it can look just like you if you want it to. But for me, the metaverse, so I can do that in real life, right? So I can walk through the forest in real life. That's not a problem. But it also allows me to fly through the forest, and it also allows me to fly into the universe from that place in the forest, and look down at that forest and enjoy it from a different view. And I think that that's really when the concepts of the metaverse come into play. No matter what world I enter, that's the first thing I do is I fly if I can. Sometimes the world is created or architected in such a way where you can't fly, and that's okay because it's that creator's vision. But when I can, I get outside of the world and I just look down at everything, and I really like to see what's been created. But I really like the fact that it encompasses all of these things, and the reason for that is because um, the decentralized space empowers ownership in a way that we don't have in the centralized world. So what Zuckerberg described was very centralized, obviously, with his company being at the focal point and now shifting to be a metaverse company. It still includes of the things from the centralized space. But when you take those ideals and you add them to the decentralized world, you grant the users ownership. You grant people the right to own and dictate where their data is used and how their data is used, and whether or not they want to actually share data. And that's one problem that Facebook has had over the years, is what they're doing with data and how they're allowing data to be accessed. In addition to that, I think that, for us, when we're creating the Black Metaverse, it's been about making sure that we have a seat at the table and that we have a way to empower our members or our collective, our collectors, with a way to have a seat at the table. To have a voice where voices have been stripped from us previously, or we've had voices and then those rights have been attributed to others. The blockchain enables immutability and trust and truth, and so you always know who did something, when they did it, and how. if a transaction is minted on the blockchain or added to the blockchain. So there's just a lot that I feel like, is great about what Facebook did. So it's definitely opened people's eyes. People are asking questions, and I think that that's wonderful. But I also feel like there is definitely a bigger space that we can all live in that works differently. So this is Nicole, and my voice is resting. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so man, we're like 20 minutes in. There's so many threads to to follow. Are you, maybe if I could ask Nicole one more question? Are you suggesting that I get how blockchain is like is very interlinked with the metaverse, and cryptocurrencies would be the currency of a metaverse, but are you suggesting that there's like the actual metaverse itself is based on some kind of blockchain system, so it's completely uh, um, decentralized, or it's kind of like hosted in some other way? Um, is that am I reading that right, or is that, is there like a
Yeah.
blockchain
Mhm.
based metaverse?
Correct. Yep.
Wow, wow, that's kind of, yeah. I'd have to sit down and think about it. That's awesome. I think I guess bringing it back to architecture, I thought, or one thing that seems to be like a key component of the metaverse is like the closer we're getting to um, really incredible VR, right? Because then it feels like, or virtual reality or augmented reality. Because I guess Ahmad's question before, the Second Life is in theory a metaverse, but I think the component where it really becomes, I don't know, a true metaverse, or however you want to say it, is when virtual reality almost becomes seamlessly integrated or so realistic that it's almost like we are in reality. And I think that's I don't know what the word is for it, but like the Matrix theory, or what the film The Matrix is based on. Um, so do you think, Faisal and Nicole, do you think this is a barrier at the moment because VR is still a little bit, clunky, in that you need this like big headset, you need a, few $100 to own a headset like that? Or do you see there's many ways that you can kind of interact with a metaverse?
I mean, I'll take that. So we are actively going towards that. So our architects, we have 3D graphic designers who have created full-on livings out of creating virtual spaces for people inside of AltSpace. So AltSpace is
Mhm.
not decentralized, but it is a metaverse of sorts. You can create your own world there and get up and walk around in it, and that's kind of the definition that we're using. So um, in AltSpace, we have one of our architects, and she's literally labeled herself as a 3D social engineer, so social architect.
Oh
And
wow, that's cool.
yeah, she's monetized AltSpace. And so what she's done is people come to her when, they have an idea, and, she takes their imagination and turns it into reality in a virtual way. And so what I do is actually work with people in their businesses, because it's important that, especially for the minority populace, that we understand the space exists and we understand how to operate and move in it. And so for us, it's critical that our businesses are here and established and kind of up and running. And so, whenever someone has questions on where do I fit in, that's what I help them kind of scope out, and then we work together, sometimes with one of the architects, to kind of figure out what does that look like in a virtual space. How can they take their business that is in this traditional model and move it to a virtual space. So, yeah, so all that's going on.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That was like obviously my first, like, the low hanging fruit thought when I saw like the metaverse kind of from Zucker's presentation, Zuckerberg's presentation, was like, oh wow, what a great opportunity for architects to start helping create these virtual spaces. And then when you think about it, it's like, are we going to spend more time creating virtual spaces than actual physical spaces? And so yeah, that was one thing. So is your is this virtual architects, like, did she train as an architect, or she just picked it up? Like, was she a 3D artist and got into it? Like, what was her background, just out of interest?
No, I'm gonna ping her in here. So she's
Oh,
an
great.
artist. So first of all, we have several, but she's the one I kind of stick to. Her name is Artsy, and she actually is an artist. So
Oh, cool.
that's where she started. But in 2020, she sat down and said, life is handing us all this bowl of fruit. What do I do with it? And so she began learning the tools that she uses to create her worlds. And so um, she's become a mastermind at it now. And just the other day, just for an example, she created what we have one of our friends who was an opera singer. And, this is a friend here on Clubhouse, but she is an opera singer out in California. And her vision for the metaverse was to have a opera house underwater that she could perform in live. And so that happened on Friday. And and it was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful. We all attended a virtual opera in Altspace, and
That's pretty
those
cool.
are the kind of things she does. Yeah. And so when I say that you really take your imagination and let it run wild, that is literally what I mean. It was underwater in a dome that was, shaped like
Yeah.
a opera house with a stage, and there were instruments that were kind of floating, like there were no people behind the instruments, but they were playing as she was singing. And it was
Wow.
amazing. It was an awesome, wonderful concert that we attended. And I feel so thankful to have been a part of that. But, um, those are the kinds of things that are happening, and they're happening all around us right now.
Yeah, I almost question, like, would a traditional architect, like, there's pros and cons of architects getting into this space, because we spend all our time, uh, training for the real world, where you have like gravity and budgets and like all of this stuff to make real buildings come, like, to get built. So like, I wonder if we're almost, overtrained to then go into a virtual world where you have, like, you don't even have the concept of gravity. Obviously there's no budget for making these things. Like, it's total freedom. So like, on one hand, yes, you understand how to create space and sequences of spaces and all that kind of stuff. So that would be super interesting. But on the other hand, maybe we're already too constrained to like come up with something as expressive as that. So that's a super interesting concept. Um, Faisal, I don't know if your connection's a little bit better, but
Yeah.
if you want, here he is.
Yeah, oh, that's one of the main challenges with designing for VR, right? Because all these constraints are removed, but at the same time, you can't go too crazy because you want to create a space that's familiar enough for people to navigate, right? You want to create a space that, for example, if you have no gravity whatsoever, then avatars are just kind of flying about, and there's no cohesion of space for them to really get to interact, because there's something special about having a small intimate setting where people can gather together and interact with each other, and that comes by through having things like constraint walls or gravity or all these other things that you have in the physical world. So there's a balance between having no constraints whatsoever and also creating spaces that are familiar enough for people to navigate, interact, and have these social experiences that we're used to as human beings. There is also the sort of forward-thinking vision that you could have to create an experience that we don't already have or know or are aware of, right? And that's I guess where the futurism comes in, because VR designers are going to basically sort of design the future of human experiences in a way that's never been done before. Because in the physical world, nature does that for us, but now human beings are going to be able to actually design the event scenarios, as they call them, of social functions and experiences, which I'm really really optimistic about. I think there's a big platform for that, and I think the new generation is actually going to be a lot more comfortable with it because kids are growing up now inside sort of VR platforms like Roblox um, or Fortnite or all these different platforms that already give you that sort of innate VR metaverse sort of intuition, and I think they might be a lot more creative and open to designing without the constraints that we kind of have as designers. So I'm super optimistic about it.
Oh, Nicole, were you about to say something? Or sorry if I could.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that people who have traditionally been able to kind of live in these places anyway have been people who, one, are very familiar with the movies because the movies have brought us here over and over again, right? So we've had like you mentioned previously, The Matrix. We've had Minority Report. We've had Tron. We've had Ready Player One. All of these movies have kind of, we've had Star Trek, they have put us in a place where we kind of understand the beyond part of the metaverse, right? But gamers are another group of people who just thrive. I happen to be a part of both groups, so my mind, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. um, you know, and it's really kind of cool. You mentioned Second Life, but really any kind of MMORPG is in essence a metaverse, because we've had the idea of portaling from one place to another. We have had these large scale social engagements that were inside of um, a different reality for us. And so I think like the use case for Facebook or a Facebook like experience in the future is Minority Report. If you recall that movie, it was Tom Cruise, and he's able to do his work in the middle of the air. He pulls out screens and kind of swaps them to and fro, and you can see him manipulating, augmenting uh, artifacts in the air. I can do that right now in virtual reality. So those kinds of things are really, really cool. And that's where we're heading. That is what, to me, that's where I want to be. When we're in the metaverse, that's what it's going to look like for me. Um, but I think, even I can't imagine all of the potential and possibility of this place. So I get excited. And so, yeah, I don't know if you had a question or if I was answering one, but I wanted
No,
to share that. Thank you.
no. It's all it's all good. I think, yeah, that's. I mean, the Minority Report. We were joking in the office that that is real because we now have the Hololens. So as architects, we work in all these different programs, and with the Hololens, you can do that now, and you can like above your traditional computer, you can have the computer that's on your head in the HoloLens. And so we were celebrating that the Minority Report has become uh, true to a degree already. But I think there's something kind of interesting about what you said about the video games as well. Is like, yeah, I was just thinking that like those video games, like well, those massive, like endless games like World of Warcraft or there's another one that's like in space and all those kind of things. They're just like endless games, and like people develop relationships and clangs of people, and they may have never met each other in reality. So it's almost like I'd imagine those guys would, I wonder if like a World of Warcraft, are they developing the game in VR that's going to be like their own metaverse and that kind of thing, which is kind of mind blowing in itself. Um, yeah, wow. This is a one of those talks where I'm having to pause for a second and just like think of all the things that are possible. I see
Hey,
Moses is
really
just. Oh,
Sorry, really quickly. Artsy has joined, and she is the social engineer that I was talking about, the social
oh,
VR engineer, architect, world creator for Altspace. So if we can invite her up, she would be able to
Yeah,
provide
just
you with
brought
so
her up.
much information also. Sorry, Moses, and thank you.
cool.
No problem.
I see we got Moses. How's this going?
It's going very well. A little bit new to Clubhouse, but glad to be here. I'm a trained architect and I work in architecture, but my specialization over the past 10 to 15 years has been in BIM and building information modeling and being a part of Building Smart in the US and Asia. And what I saw very early on is that the big problem that the metaverse presents towards traditional architecture is the lack of understanding of the economic model and how blockchain is kind of the railways for that model. And that's a big risk towards architecture because the economic model for architecture currently has not been a great return on an investment. So you have a lot of underbidding of one architect versus another. Another problem, I think, is the educational system. Like, a common thing that you hear in BIM circles is that the colleges are not teaching to a large extent these new digital ways of exchanging information. The colleges have remained very traditional, so it's going to be a big paradigm shift for traditional architecture to migrate over. So I think that the gaming industry kind of has a head start in creating a lot of spaces. Or 3D spaces. Now, the question of how do those 3D spaces that live on the metaverse start to cross over to the real world and vice versa? I think is going to start with a lot of the products that you're going to see from big companies such as Nike and fashion designers, and then maybe eventually architecture will catch up. But I think we probably all agree that the kind of digitization of spaces has been at play in the architecture world, and it's been an uphill climb, just talking from the perspective of the BIM movement.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're bringing the conversation deep into the architecture world again. But yeah, obviously, so like I also come from a BIM background. I totally understand what you're saying. I think you're right. It's I what I was thinking whilst you were talking is maybe again going back to the question of like are architects great at, could the metaverse be a place to train a new generation of architects, which could come from all different backgrounds? Will traditional architects be the innovators in the metaverse? Because, like you said, it's taken years for architects to even adopt things like BIM, which has been around for like 20 years now, or like programs like Revit has been around for like 20 years now. Will architects be the people that will help shape this this new world? Which it would kind of be a shame if it is and if it isn't in both ways. But yeah, I think it would be a really interesting space to educate architects for sure. Like, because you could, in theory, design and experience the things at the same time. If that's kind of what you were kind of getting at there. But maybe this is a good time to also add Artsy into the mix, because I hear you are I would say a meta architect, but I forget the title that Nicole gave you as like a social architect of spaces. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Artsy, maybe you can jump in here and also give us a bit about your background and what you've been doing in the metaverse and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, thank
Hey.
you for holding this space. Thanks, Nicole, for pinging me. Yeah, so I'm Artsy. I am an artist. I got into virtual reality before the pandemic, but the pandemic, I've discovered social VR, um, specifically the platform AltSpace VR. And I initially went in to display my artwork. I'm an illustrator, a digital illustrator, and I found that being able to showcase my artwork in a gallery, and meet people from all around the world was a great opportunity. And so that's when I got into social VR, and I built my first gallery space. Um, and then I got into the community a little bit, and then part of the community is in social VR is like you want to have a home space, and so I went into learning Unity because AltSpace was built in Unity, the game engine, and then I brought in models of 3D homes that were on Sketchfab, and then just was making these different environments, uh, based on these 3D models. And then I taught myself 3D modeling in SketchUp Pro, and then I moved to Blender 3D. And so I've been exploring architecture just from an artist perspective, and having a high reverence for architects, licensed architects, and just a lifelong love for architecture. And so I've built a community around people that want to enjoy a luxury lifestyle in virtual reality. And so I build homes, lofts, studios, malls, all types of different environments for people to enjoy in for me, because I'm living out my dream to be an architect in a space where um, anything is possible, and you don't have the same limitations as we have in the real world, as far as gravity and building codes and rules and stuff like that. Um, but I think it's a great space for architects to expand their imagination, and a place where it's right now it doesn't cost any money to build in the metaverse. And so I think it's a great way for people to get in. And social VR in particular, um, people like to live in these spaces. So that's what I've kind of gotten into that market for, is to provide home spaces for people that are just look really nice.
That's super interesting. So you are already a meta architect. That's amazing. And I was surprised. Like, yeah, what do most people ask you to build? Is it homes and stuff like that, or is it like gallery spaces, or event spaces or stuff like that? Is homes the primary, or like the most common thing you get asked to make
So
design?
I have a Patreon. So when I first started, like, the economy
Hmm.
in alt space, it was the homes that people wanted, because it was the stuff that they couldn't. I mean, I think it was the easiest path for them,
Yeah,
um, because that's where you want to hang out with your friends most. But then, as more people started to flow into the space, people got more creative with the events that they wanted to throw. And then, as business minded people or people with brands came into the space, they wanted to have their storefronts or their dream storefronts.
mm,
And that's where all of those other things came in. But I also do the interior design and the modeling of my furniture as well. So I think that's where um, me mashing up all of those different things for the home
yeah.
spaces really took off.
Yeah, so I mean, you're on the ArChi-TECH network, so we are all about architecture and technology, and we often do talks on like the software and technologies that we use to design things that, but also inspires the design itself. So it was also, I have to go back and ask you about the platforms that you use. So you are designing for AltSpace is the metaverse, the host of this place, and then you said you're using SketchUp and Blend was it Blender to model things, and then you bring that in using Unity. Is that kind of the workflow? Just paint us a little picture of the workflow.
Yeah, so when I first got into social VR, and I was searching for 3D models because I didn't know how to 3D model myself, I
Right.
realized that a lot of the 3D models were not performant because ArcViz, um, they're very high poly. So it was challenging to find really high quality modern architecture models that were made for virtual reality because it has to be, it has to fit within a specific polygon limit. And it also has to have, very specific ways of, merging materials and stuff like that. So SketchUp was not exactly ideal for, great geometry, and use of materials. So that's why I switched to Blender. But yeah, Blender is the pipeline to 3D model and do material work. And then I use Unity to do lighting and collisions for the game of AltSpace. And they also have a SDK, which allows me to upload the templates into the actual software.
Interesting. Yeah, I keep that's really interesting to kind of, obviously a lot of architects use SketchUp and all that kind of stuff, and Unity and Unreal are kind of the new interesting thing to add to your skill set as an architect. So it's really interesting to hear what the actual process for getting it across. Is there a interface in AltSpace to actually build? Can you make a block in like a simple cube in AltSpace and make a house inside it, or you have to like go through the steps of like bringing it in from
Yeah,
some other program?
yeah. So Allspace has an in-app uh, world builder tool, that has, they utilize something called kits.
Mm.
And so they do have some standard kits like a geometry kit. And then other people can bring in custom kits. So I also make custom kits as well. Um, and it's it's a little bit easier to obviously bring something in from the outside, but a lot of people have built on, within the app.
Hey Artsy, your work is super cool. I just checked out your Instagram. I'm loving the spaces. I just wanted to ask, is there a reason you you uploaded onto AltSpace VR as opposed to sort of maybe the other social VR platforms like Sansar or other ones? Is there a reason you prefer AltSpace?
Yeah, so Altspace was my first social platform that kind of hooked me with the community, and the ease of access of getting into it. So Altspace is, it's on the Oculus Quest store, so it's easy for people who are just getting the Oculus, to download it. The community is more mature than the community in VR chat, and you don't have to connect it to PC, like you do to enter Sansar, and Neos. And so, while all of my work is done in Blender, and Unity, I can still transfer all of my work to other platforms. Um, Altspace is where I built community, and so in Altspace, I pioneered the lifestyle of having a home space, like a home space that you can call your own and you can decorate and, like turn into an event space. And so there are over 2,000 worlds that have been created in Altspace using my templates, my custom templates. So when you come into Altspace gives you like five templates to start off with. I make custom templates for the community. and the level of quality and attention to detail is something that I've only been able to find and achieve in alt space thus far. Although VR chat does allow for scripting, the community is not as connected as it is in alt space.
That's awesome. And I guess people are also paying you for this. That's the awesome part as well, right? Or is it
I
like monetized yet, or is it not monetized yet? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I don't work for free. And I've let people know that, from the very start. I've literally done, I mean, I do things
So say
out of the kindness of my heart,
not
you
like
know?
traditional architects. We do a lot of shit for free.
I've done like okay, so one of the things we like to do for people is we like to throw surprise birthday parties. And so I like to do surprise birthday party spaces for free
Oh,
for my
cool.
friends. But I from the start have never done anything for free. And so even though before I entered alt space, they told me, like some of the people told me that there was no economy there and that it was frowned upon to charge for things. I could not be in the space living my wildest dreams and making other people's wildest dreams come true if I had to sell my Oculus to pay rent. So um, I am a lifelong entrepreneur making money off of my art, and I don't have a choice to um, be in a space where I create and I don't make money. So I found different ways and opportunities to give people what they want and also make sure that I have a roof over my head. So I've monetized it from the beginning. And so I have a Patreon where I have over 100 people that pay monthly to get new templates. And then I also have custom clients who want, things just for themselves. And so
So,
it's my full-time job.
so this is something I also wanted to talk about with the metaverse, the sort of potential careers that architects could have when they don't need developers or clients to fund their projects anymore. They can have sort of clients in VR or just everyday people funding projects in that way. Do you see this being a big sort of new landscape for architects to go to in terms of funding? Because I feel like crypto, blockchain, NFTs opens up a whole new marketplace for architects, right, and designers. And I also want to, welcome Stefan to the room. I know he's partners with Nicole, I think, in Black Metaverse. So maybe we can speak about sort of the potential for designers and architects in the metaverse space, and because there are a lot of architects in the audience, and I think a lot of people would be interested in sort of veering into that world. So yeah, what are the potentials for designers and architects in the metaverse?
So I just want to frame that um, VR is a great bridge with uh, crypto and NFTs, although most VR platforms don't have payment integration with NFT, like the blockchain yet. But VR, even with me not being a licensed architect, I've gotten a lot of people that are interested in getting, like having somebody take my designs and turn them into something, that can be built in real life. So I think, architects will definitely find a new market by showcasing their work in VR and also bringing their own clients into VR to show, their work. Um, and then also, being able to walk around in a space and, like walk around in your NFT is also beneficial. So there's a lot of different ways that NFTs and architecture is being brought in. And I do have a link to my website in my bio, and you guys can schedule meetings with me to talk about it um, if anybody needs help.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think it's incredible that you are full on working architect in the metaverse. I didn't expect to meet one so soon in the world of metaverses, but it's very inspiring to kind of think about that as a new space, because I think as a as a I don't know what to call myself now, an earth architect, or like a physical architect, dealing with gravity and stuff like that. You often you don't think of these spaces as like, you think of them that it's going to take a few years before people start to create things and create economies in this stuff. So it's really incredible to hear people are already doing that in that space. Um, yeah, I see we got a few more people that have come up to the stage and a few more people with hands up. I will just say, just as a reminder for those of you who didn't join at the beginning, we do record these sessions so that we can put them on so other people can hear them. If you don't want to be involved, let me know and I will kind of edit you out of the talk. But we like to have these talks to spread as much information about the space as possible, so we do record them. Stefan, I see you've just come up. We've also got Richard as well, one of our regulars. But Stefano, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk to us about what you're doing with Nicole.
Yeah, well, number one, this is amazing that all of this is happening and sort of exponentially exploding like this. So I didn't know Artsy until we had a group together. So Nicole and I run Black Metaverse, and it's designed to be a hub, and the hub has really just exploded in a really cool way with some of the greatest thinkers. And Artsy came in there, and we all had our minds blown by what she's doing, and then some other pioneers who came in the room. So I would definitely follow everything that she's doing. And I'll say this really quick. I asked Archie after the first time meeting with her about a piano, if it was possible for her to make a piano in the metaverse. And she said, oh, we already have one. And then I said, well, can I play the piano? And she said, yeah. So her ability to set things up and to design things is like out of this world. And I would say if anyone just wants to see some potential that's out there, watch what she's doing. It's been amazing to me. And Nicole and I will be running a Black Metaverse tonight. We do it she's probably already told you, Sundays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And it's been amazing to see people who are here to learn and just really leading out in the space. Teddy, who is one of the 30 top metaverse people in the world. Dietrich, I don't know if he's here in this room. He was here earlier. He runs Meta World. Just some great thinkers out there. So I'm here to learn and to listen.
Awesome, and that's on Clubhouse. People can follow you guys and tune in later on Clubhouse, or is that
Correct.
in the
Yep.
metaverse?
It's on Clubhouse, but I will say that Nicole has a room on Saturdays that actually takes you into Metaverse, just doing everything in there. So, but our Black Metaverse room is tonight at 8 o'clock.
Awesome. So I see, Richard, you joined a little while ago. I don't want to leave you hanging for too long. Is there anything you want to jump in there with, or add to the conversation?
Hi, happy Sunday to everyone. So, yeah, like I think the direction is really nice right now. I don't want to interrupt much, but I was very much excited to say that, like, really building buildings as if in metaverse as a clothes or a profile we can change every now and then, and it will be like a trend going or TikTok, the way we have trends going on. It will be very much fun, and also monetization of it when we'll have, seven wonders not of the world but a metaverse. So yeah, that is it.
Yeah, actually, whilst you guys were talking, one thing that kind of like sprung to mind is a traditional architecture practice. The majority of our work is unbuilt, right? You're lucky, or you're considered a successful architect if, let's say, 2 out of every 10 products actually get built. And so,
Yeah.
the majority of what we do just lives on a server, or, just dies as a render, or a 3D, but we have 3D models everywhere. So there's always been a conversation about, like, is there a way to maybe monetize or use that to, for people to experience? Because right now, the most you could do with it is maybe publish it, put it on your website and hope that it attracts new work that eventually gets built. And so, that's where NFTs came into things. Like, could you sell, assets from a project that doesn't get built as NFTs and create, new streams of revenue? So now, as we're talking, the metaverse could be a place for us to showcase our real world architecture for people to experience, and then maybe that's it's a space for like people to experience the unbuilt. What if like this could be the alternative version of London? Like, these are all the products that were hopefully built but weren't built because of politics or economies or whatever reason. There could just be like this alternate space for people to kind of experience. So that's another kind of thought that just popped up, and maybe each architects will just have their own space to test these things and to kind of experiment with these things. Moses, I see you
Uh,
unmuting. Do you want to jump in?
Yes, yes. I just wanted to jump in and add to your line of thought. Currently in architecture and construction, there's a skilled labor shortage, especially on construction sites. And also, because of the past recession, there's a shortage of architects with a certain level of experience. And so with what you're saying, I also wonder, do we have college graduates who've studied design, who studied architecture, who've studied a little bit of computer science and engineering, who just go to a totally new career path, inspired by people like Artsy, and say, hey, there's no limitations here. I understand the blockchain. I understand computer science, making these objects, adding the physics in Unreal Engine or Unity. What would entice that individual to go to a traditional architectural practice as opposed to this new unbounded world? And so I think that's interesting food for thought. If I had the opportunity to build Meta London, do I do that, or do I draw toilet layouts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, it's not. I think the majority of people that like study architecture don't actually end up becoming your traditional architect that builds buildings, so to speak. So I think it's only going to increase. It's only going to entice more people away from, let's say, traditional architecture or real world architecture. Which is a good thing and a bad thing, because also, if I was to play devil's advocate, I'm definitely passionate that, like, the construction industry is a huge driver for greenhouse emissions. It's some statistic like 40% of greenhouse emissions come from the AEC industry, and so on the other hand, we really need talented architects to come up with new ways of building that's sustainable and all these kind of things. But yeah, really interesting food for thought there. I know we've had I'm gonna totally mess up your name, Animal. I know you've been there for a little bit. Do you want to jump in or add anything to the discussion?
Hi, it's Anmol,
Animal,
to be
Animal.
clear.
There you go.
Yeah, I have just completed my bachelor's in architecture. So, into the last year of my architecture, when I was doing the apprenticeship in some firm, I got to know about virtual reality in a more detailed way. So, from moving to different types of materials or structural during the VR journey, how we can visualize within 1 second from one phase to the another so that a client could get a better vision according to his taste. So that's how that thing really intrigued me, that this virtual reality part of metaverse can take a great uh, turn at some point of time in which a more focus would be created. So recently, relating to that, I was doing some competition related to urban chair, and I had to design a street furniture in a community, and that community was from the Britishers' time. They have constructed it with a radial pattern and so. So when I was thinking to provide that urban chair over there, I even thought that why won't I provide some type of virtual reality related to what Archie till that Archie said that she had 5,000 of template with different visions and for the community. So by just wearing a goggle while sitting on that urban chair, a person, one of the person while moving sitting over there can just see the history of that area as well as the community or the new space which is set as a template or could be used to show a different vision for that zone. That would be really great. That would be very intrigued for a person to imagine that how without the structures or with some different template a person can look up to the vision for whether it's related to architecture, open spaces,
Kind of
sustainability.
kind of like an unbuilt version of
Yes,
where you are.
yes. As a respect to you said about the political factor might be differed, but
Yeah.
obviously if it has to be imagined, it could be provided. So that's what I want to say. And thank you for such a great group. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Yeah, no, I think we touched on that once, was like the idea of there being like a digital overlay on reality. I guess that, yeah, that is also the metaverse, where you could see see, what we've seen in movies where like you put some glasses on and you see all these adverts overlay like floating over buildings and stuff like that. I think if that's what you were kind of touching on, is this like second life, but it's overlaid onto reality, is super interesting as well. There's so many different threads to go down. It's difficult to know which one. Um,
Uh,
Faisal,
I
I
think
think
that's
you
definitely
had a
yeah.
question.
I think that's definitely going to be
uh,
the future. If you see my PTR, I think we might be looking like this in about 10 to 15 years, where everyone has a physical face and then a sort of AR overlay that they can that they can pick. But yeah, I did have a question for Nicole and Stefan. Um, so I feel like metaverses already exist and have existed for a while, and we're going to see more pop up in the future. Especially with Facebook sort of leading the way now. Um, what do you guys think is the main limitation for the popularity of metaverses? Why are we not all already immersed completely in metaverses? Why are we still on Clubhouse, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Why are we not all just in avatars in metaverses? The only sort of main reason I've come across so far is the accessibility side of things, because you do still need sort of HMDs, VR goggles, which might be too expensive because people aren't willing to spend that much on something that's for a specific reason. Whereas, for example, your phone can be used for many reasons, so social media is just an additional benefit, as opposed to VR goggles, which is very specific. But apart from that, do you think there are other reasons for this lack of sort of I don't know, sort of mainstream interest in the metaverse?
Um, Nicole, you want to go first?
Sure. So what I would say is that it's similar to Clubhouse, and I'll use Clubhouse as an example because I think you mentioned it also. Um, this Clubhouse builds itself as the one and only, or the first social audio app. Well, if you've been in gaming, you know that's not true. And so we've had social audio apps for years. We had uh, TeamSpeak and Mumble and RaidCall and the Ventrilo over 10 years ago. And so I'm sorry, so Clubhouse came out, and Clubhouse said, "Hey, we're a social audio app," and it just happened to be the thing that everybody kind of latched onto, and they said, "Oh yeah, this thing is new. It's pretty. It's shiny." And to me, that's what Facebook is doing. I don't know that Facebook is going to be the thing that everybody latches onto, but they're trying to make themselves that thing. Um, metaverses have been around. Metaverses have been in discussion, and we can say that we've been discussing metaverses for months here. But I think that it's really what's going to be the one thing that becomes something that people can actually latch onto for whatever feature it is, or whether or not it's affordability or just timing. Like maybe we have another pandemic and people are at home and they need something to do that, that allows them to have social interaction with people because they can't go outside. Um, had Facebook done this a year earlier, maybe we'd be in Facebook right now and in the Facebook metaverse. But we are kind of where we are, and I think that it's just going to take that one thing. It's going to be the culmination of all factors, but raising awareness is definitely part of it. Onboarding people appropriately to the space so that they understand how and when to move into the space is another part. So this is Nicole, my voice is Ashley.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nicole. That actually, oh, I'm sorry, Stephen. I just had a kind of a follow-up comment slash question, which I was thinking of the whole way is like, we started with Faisal saying that, there's internet, there's blockchain, there are systems that already exist, and metaverse is probably the next thing that's kind of like gonna change the way we live it away. But I was thinking like, internet was started by Tim Berners-Lee, kind of like an open source project for his use, and then became quickly the standard. And then same thing with blockchain started, and we don't even really know the creator. I wonder if the metaverse, because it already exists in a lot of different forms, if it's not already doomed in a way just because there is no like kind of a standard that's been set, and then people kind of like go into it, and there are so many that seem to already exist.
So let me say one thing to that. Today, someone sent me a write-up on the metaverse that was sort of attempted to streamline and simplify uh, what we're going to call it. It was like, hey, this is all put together, and somebody did it. And that thing was 4,300 words long. Well, it's been the complications of having a standard idea of what the metaverse actually is, to me, that it's been moving. It's like a moving target because it seems to be defined different between different people. One early sort of predecessor of the metaverse or developer said that what we're on right now in Clubhouse is sightless metaverse. And there was all these people in the room kind of, yaying about that idea because they were saying it gets down to people and community and virtually meeting. So my 2 cents is I think it's possible with Meta, this new company, and a lot of other people dealing in this space. I think it's possible that we might see AR uh, maybe take off a little hotter than Metaverse with VR because there's more accessibility globally, to a mobile phone. So, I think it's actually going to be a while, but it is going to happen that VR and headsets are a lower barrier of entry. But right now, because of that, I wouldn't doubt it if some form of AR exists and helps to define what a metaverse is to more people at once.
I just like to say, I think that comment Stefan was right on, with AR in the future being critical to make the metaverse mainstream. I think Google was a little bit early to market with their Google Glass um, when they came out with it, and a lot of the consumer market rejected it for various reasons. I think Facebook waited and saw the NFT explosion and the economics behind that, the economics behind a lot of the blockchain combining with gamification, and saw that here's something that gets people together and gives them an economic incentive to participate. Part of what we've seen with VR is that some people feel a little bit queasy putting them on. Some people feel a little bit embarrassed having the big headset on their face when they're around others and say, hey, it's messing up my hair. So when you have AR come along and give you a nice pair of Ray-Bans that brings metaverse information out in front, I think that's going to be a key threshold moment.
Yeah, that's I totally agree on that front because we actually see it a lot. I think that moment where I assume Apple is going to come out with like some glasses that look super sleek and cool, and then you got all this like augmented overlay on reality. That to me seems like that'll be the catalyst for a lot of this stuff. I still, yeah, to play devil's advocate, I can't imagine. I don't know, like people staying at home with their VR headset on and spending significant time in that space, but maybe I'm just not like can't quite see it at the moment because it's not. I haven't experienced it myself. Maybe.
It seems like Apple already has a product. I'm just googling it called Eyeglass, which
Yeah.
didn't they try? There was a
I thought
product,
it
or
was
was
like
it the Google? But there was a very clunky version of that, like maybe 5, 6 years ago, and
I
it
think
was kind
that's
of
what
dead.
Moses was talking about. The Google
Yeah,
that was the Google
yeah, the Google
glasses,
Glass. Yeah,
but
yeah.
Apple have been
So
like it's been
Facebook
on the
also
horizon for a long time.
Facebook also just launched their Ray-Ban collaboration, right? Which might be their contribution to this. To Stefan's point, I think I completely agree with that. I think because people are much more comfortable with AR. You have basically every social media platform. You have TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and even Facebook Stories, sort of allowing overlays that you can use, kind of like my my PTR right now. I think that might be the quickest way to transition into the metaverse, and that might be the main reason that Facebook launched their collaboration with Ray-Bans, right? Knowing that Ray-Bans are already popular and already pretty much in every household, having that kind of collaboration would be the quickest way sort of to get people on board. So yeah, I agree with you, Stefan. I think that might be, maybe for the next 3 to 5 years, that might be the next big thing before we have sort of HMDs become popular. Also, thanks for sending me this link, Stefan. I've added it to the top of the room here. It's super interesting. 7 rules for the metaverse. I think anyone who's interested should check it out. It's super interesting.
Yeah, I also found it interesting that those rules came out at the same time that some other group is talking about a sort of constitution and they're trying to make up a set of parameters or something. So I'm just saying there's a lot of people and groups that seem to be trying to define something that is just morphing as we watch it. But it ends up that everybody has to say a lot of words to try to define it.
A lot of food for thought. I see we have Kalin came up. Welcome to the stage. I don't know if there's anything you want to add. Just in case you just joined us, we do record this room, so we're going to post it up later on. If you don't want to be featured, do just message me and we'll cut you out from the recording. But Kalin, is there anything you wanna add to the conversation?
Yeah, so I've actually been digging into this a little bit, just the Web3 space in general, and trying to see um, the best providers, like what the best way to get like a web app um, in the Web3. I think software on the Web3 is going to be the future, and I think the best place to go would be Polkadot of um, because Gavin Wood was the CTO of Ethereum, and I think he had the dream of running software on crypto, so he's pushing this.
So
And they
the
have these
platform's called
things called
Polkadot.
parachains coming out. It's called Polkadot.
Okay.
It's a crypto coin. It's a weird. I don't really know exactly how it can link. They have protocols that allow it to link to both Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I think that's the future. I think Polkadot is going to be the future, and they have a prepaid thing called a pair thread, which you can do. You create as a like a organization, and you prepay per usage, so you have fees. But I think they said they're going to be less expensive than Ethereum. This thing hasn't even gone live yet. It goes live, I think, in November, for the pair chains. But if you could get a pair chain, it would. I don't know exactly how much it would cost, but if you could get one and crowdfund it, you could essentially turn on the internet for free because you wouldn't have to pay any fees for this. Like the way you could deliver a lot more software on the Web3. There'd be a lot more people working on it if there wasn't a service charge. And so I think that's where
Mm.
he's trying to push it to. I don't think corporations will let that will just give it away for free. So I don't know how they would get to that point, but I think that's where the future is.
You suggest, like, is this a platform where you're saying by making it more accessible, this would be a platform where you would host like a metaverse or various different metaverses?
It would essentially be like the cloud for Web3. It's like they would get paid. So the parachain only lasts for 2 years. It's like 92 weeks.
Hmm.
So after that 2 years is over, you would have to pay again. Like go into an auction to purchase that ability to be on that chain. But by paying for that, you don't have to pay for fees. You pay like one time upfront, and I think it's 20% of the cap is some of the things that I was seeing, but they're really kind of all over the place with it. So it'd be nice to see official numbers on cost, but it's kind of a rising cost because it's whatever the dot is.
Okay.
The dot is the parachains.
I've not heard of it. We'll
It's
have to.
it's a lot, but like imagine if you could create applications on the Web3 and it'd be feasible for everyone.
Those are called dApps. So, yeah, I haven't honestly dove into Polkadot. I'm kind of cruising the website now. However, there are a lot of kind of these projects that are out there, and so definitely do your research and find whichever. Just like in developing. So you don't develop with a stack because someone tells you to. You develop with a stack that's the proper use case or the proper stack for your use case. So make sure that you're developing on a blockchain that resonates with you, your project, and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether that's a decentralized autonomous organization, a DApp, a decentralized app, or an NFT drop. You really want to be in the best place that's best for you, your ideals, and your community. So, if that ends up being Polkadot, cool. If it's, Calaman or Tezos or just Ethereum in general, then that's what works. You just really got to do your research on everything. So, it's new and there's lots of stuff coming up at all times. So just be aware of that too.
Uh,
Cool. I know, Tim, you came up on stage. I didn't see you come up. How's it going? Do you want to jump in here or anything to the chat?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick that I don't think Polkadot has much to do with the metaverse right now. I think Polkadot is more of a interoperability between different blockchains. So if you wanted to buy something on Bitcoin versus Ethereum or something else. But in terms of the metaverse and opportunities for architects, something that friends of mine and I were researching 6 months or so ago was we were trying to find an actual software that architects use today to design buildings that we can actually then use to upload something to a metaverse. There were a lot of different metaverses online, but the interesting side of it is that there's a lot of potential out there right now where developers, real life developers who buy buildings, are actually buying plots of land on different platforms like Somnium. Somnium is one where the graphics are a little bit better, your designs are a little bit better, but people are actually paying ETH for land right now, and they're paying upwards of 5 to 10 ETH for one little plot of land just based on the same logic that we have in real life. So when the developers buy the land, one of the things that we started to notice was that they were actually looking for people to design the buildings to put on that plot. And what ended up happening was that the developers were buying these digital pieces of land. They were trying to put something up, and as they did that, what ended up happening was the same urban planning ideas that we have in real life right now, where you have a town center or an urban center, became a place for all of these developers to try and capitalize on advertising strategies. And what ended up happening was you also had billionaires who were buying the plots of land, and they were also buying NFTs that they can then put on display in these galleries. And then the digital space became a place where it started to really blend the boundary between physical and digital, because people wanted to have parties on all of these different platforms so that they can see the NFT art. And so there's a big move towards all of that. And right now, there's actually platforms like Decentraland, which is totally different than Somnium, where on Decentraland, there's actually a concert coming up where some of the big name people that you know of today in the electronic dance music space are going to be hosting their own concerts on a platform like Decentraland. The issue that I'm seeing as an architect is that we don't really have the capability of jumping in and designing those spaces because, like Artsy was talking about earlier, you really need to have the background in designing buildings with low poly, which means you need to design in something like Blender or something like 3D Max and get it to a point where you can actually reduce the amount of polygons that are in that model so that you can actually upload it to that particular platform. When you use something like Revit or SketchUp, it's a high poly design software. And so the issue we were seeing when we were researching this as a potential area to move into was that you would need to then take all of the models that you're creating and figure out how to get someone else to then decrease the polygons by literally taking your design and recreating it in Blender or in anything else. But the goal that we had was to actually try and take some of the unbuilt architecture that we always put into competitions and actually create a metaverse where you can have all of these different unbuilt architectural work. So if you imagine one of the bigger competitions that architects always participate in is the Avolo skyscraper competition, where there's all these concepts going out, but there's only 5 winners. And we started thinking, well, what if we could connect developers to these architects who design these buildings and literally put them up in a metaverse? The issue we keep running into is how do you actually get these buildings into a metaverse because of the polygon counts. So I don't think it's that architects can't get in right now. I think it's you need to create a team where you have people who can all come together and think together creatively to make it happen. And eventually technology will get to a point of allowing architects to design with Revit and BIM technologies and literally put the buildings that you can't build physically today into a digital world like the metaverse, and eventually we might be able to actually make it physically. But we were just seeing that there's a lot of potential for taking something that we can't do right now, putting it into a digital form so people can actually enjoy it, and when construction technologies catch up, we can actually then build it. I don't know if that's a lot there, but that's the way that we were researching it 6 months ago.
That's
You got it.
actually perfect. Yeah, like that's right on the money. And I've been exploring I mean, even me building my spaces to work in alt space has been too high poly for Decentraland and crypto voxels. And so I've been having to, figure out ways to dumb down the work that I've done, to uh work in these different metaverses. And so I'm kind of reverse engineering my workflow. And I'm actually going to be relaunching my YouTube channel to uh, help others build in a way for um, where their architecture can move throughout the metaverse um, in all of these different platforms. Even though right now we are still, limited by the hardware and the software, I think it's important to learn these game industry skills for architects, and that's what my focus is going to be on my YouTube channel.
Right,
Yeah,
and I don't think that it's a matter of if it'll ever get to a point where you can put high poly models on the metaverse. I think it's a matter of when, because as you start to get to more detailed designs, you really need to increase the polygon counts no matter what you do. The fact of the matter
Absolutely.
is, the metaverse is infinite.
and we don't actually have a physical database where we can have all of that information to store. And as we start to get better with the chip technologies and all of that, we might actually get to a point where the high poly models are nothing. But it's a matter of when we get there.
Yep. And I can't wait for it.
Hi,
Yeah,
Tim. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to tap into kind of what you were saying that really hits on the heart of the decentralized space in and of itself. And that is the idea of project teams and community. So you mentioned, you're trying to take what you're doing in real life and apply it to this space and trying to make it, the best that it can be without kind of feeling like you've lost a little bit of yourself. Well, so what happens is that's happening for all of us. Like we're trying to figure out, where do I fit in? Where do I add value? How can I thrive in this space? And what's really beautiful about this space is the idea of project teams and communities. So you are partnering with someone who has another skill set that you don't. And so that is very prevalent in NFTs. It's very prevalent in kind of looking at your business or your skill set, your freelance work, whatever it is that you're doing, and really, taking a good look at it and kind of analyzing the skills that you have and how you can apply them to this space. So I just wanted to say that's common. um, Everybody's kind of doing that right now, and you're in the right spot, but everything that you said is definitely dead on for kind of that decentralized thinking, and that's what's required to thrive in the space, is the ability to think outside of the centralized box. This is Nicole. My voice is resting. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? But I think Anmal had something first. So I want to respect that.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Daphne. I just want to add, one person said about that virtual reality of VR system is very difficult to carry, as the client might say that his hair or his or her hair could get spoiled. That's very true, and that has happened a lot in my firm too. And carrying that whole system to the client's office also was a great kind of dilemma or question that we should carry it or not. Now, moving on to augment reality, this is the new concept. I can relate it with an example, like if a client might be on if you're talking about a house near a riverside, and two people want to build their dream home over there. So by this augmented reality AR, or with just wearing glasses, an architect could just show them the phases of the construction, like whether it is on the skeleton stage while it is getting constructed, but the final touch could be shown by wearing the Ray-Ban glasses. It would be so much feasible as well as flexible for the person to just analyze and visualize, who has no context or don't know how to visualize the space in a very better way. So that would be very much flexible rather than VR, and the smart glasses will do a great work over there related to emotional connection directly to the person. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And again, we're kind of delving back into the specifics of architecture, but yeah, I think AR has a lot of potential to kind of maybe break the mold. Um, yeah, I see. We had a question at the end there. We had Dark Mist, the artist.
Darkness, yeah,
Dark Mist.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading your profile. Seems like you got quite an interesting background. You're coming from the VFX artist world, like the
Hmm.
movie world, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Um, yeah. What have you got to add?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
you had a question or
absolutely.
something?
Yeah, question. And thank you for that. Yeah, my name is Dark Mist. I'm a artist in the space. And I wanted to mention. I like to talk about the like the poly counts in these metaverse spaces and getting it to the graphic quality. Well, actually, maybe more so, I'd like to ask a question for those that have been in the spaces using these softwares. So, from my background, I came from working VFX in the film industry, and I did a lot of environmental um, effects and some design. And now what I'm trying to do is I'm actually using Unreal, but I've also been using a combination of also Unity. Unity for some AR development test, but then Unreal for more for the cinematics. But the more I get into the metaverse space, I'm getting a little confused as into which route I would want to continue maintaining. I really like Unreal. Um, just due to its application and whatnot, Unity as well. But I'm the I guess what I want to know is Unreal doing anything in the metaverse? I know Unity is heavy in that, but is there space for Unreal in the metaverse?
I was
Can
actually,
I answer that really quick?
yeah, I was just curious about the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So if you check out the metaworld.org, that is a space created by the same creator of AltSpace. It is called the Meta World. It's been in creation for about 5 years, but he is using Unreal Engine and also the concept of metahumans for that space. So if you go to that website, you'll be able to see kind of what that looks like and where you can go from there. And he is definitely open to developers and creators and reaching out. He is here on Clubhouse. I think he actually so he has rooms here often also. Um, his name is Dietrich Reed, Dedric Reed, Reid. I'll send you the link in the back channel since you asked the question up here. But that space is definitely one that we wholeheartedly support. And for me, I know I heard somebody else say this earlier that it was kind of cartoony for you in places like Altspace and Decentraland. Uh, I feel the same sometimes. It depends on the world that I'm in, but that adds a layer of realism to everything. So if you check that out, there's videos on there. You can also create your digital twin or your digital being. I'm not sure what he's calling them now, but they are avatars that look and feel human. So definitely check into that, and then know that yes, Unreal is doing great things in the space, and I think there's even grants out there for folks who want to start developing with them in places like the meta world, but to really just if you have an idea to try to cultivate it, that is on the Unreal website, I believe.
Oh, that information is that's unreal. I mean, pun intended. No, that's great. Thank you. I will definitely check that out. And I get the only other last question I have that I was curious about is, well, okay, because Unreal is starting to use this technology, and I'm sorry, I'm missing the actual term of it. Is it nano tessellation? I don't know. So I couldn't. I mean, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be far fetched to see that that sort of high quality graphics is, I would think, 6 8 months away. You wouldn't think so? I mean, the fact that we can bring in meta scans and interpolate in ways that it doesn't bog down the system, I kind of think we're almost there.
I mean,
Um,
yeah. Are you saying? Well, are we? I guess if you have a huge setup, right? But I guess for the average person, they don't necessarily have like a super high end computer or a headset, or are you talking like if you've got the hardware to do it, or you think for the average person?
well, maybe it'd be easier to ask this question. I haven't started building in any of the metaverses yet. I do have real estate and super world, but that's more AR based. So just starting to look into this, I'm actually curious on what the average um, real estate space is like. Like, if I go in my software and create, do a world creation, am I able to use world scale 200, 300 meters, or do I need to keep it down 50 by 50? I haven't really heard much conversation on the sizes of these worlds to build in, so it's just kind of like jumping into software. you
Like
know
like literally the scale? Could you build like just
yeah.
a house, or could you build like a city?
Yeah, a city, or can I even build it as far as statewide? Well, okay, that's a little too far, but yeah, city maybe.
Cool though. Yeah, I don't know actually, but maybe Artsy could or Nicole could answer that. I don't know if you have to like buy, like you say, a bit of real estate, or you just have freedom to create your own space.
Yeah. Yeah, so in most of the worlds, you're buying a plot of land. In the metaworld.org, that's the one that I was talking about earlier today, or a second ago. That world is 10,000 square miles of simulated reality. So,
Oh,
um,
okay.
I don't know anything else that you asked because I am not an architect or developer that way. But maybe Artsy can answer that piece. But for the meta world, it's 10,000 square miles right now.
So I know like the decentralized metaverses, the ones where you have to buy plots of land, they tell you how big those plots of land are. And most of them, for the amount that you pay, it's pretty high. It's a pretty small plot of land. And meters is usually the standard of how you determine that. And in Blender you can build in meters pretty easily. But in alt space, I use alt space because I'm coming from just a free creative space. I wasn't into, well, I've been aware of crypto, but I'm in the space to have fun primarily. My dive into the economy of it is just by pure need, necessity to make money in the space, but it's not out of the need to be on a decentralized platform. So in alt space, you have an infinite amount of room to create. So each world that you build is infinite, and you don't have a limit on how many different environments you can create or how big that needs to be. The only limitation is um, the number of materials used and the number of polygons used to create a positive experience for the user. So there are several worlds where you can get up to 1 million or 5 million polygons in a world. If you're using a couple textures, you can get away with that. But if you're pushing, 5 million polygons with like 300 textures, people are going to have a really bad experience in there. And that varies, across different platforms in the headset. Like the headset, you obviously have to be very more conservative. But in alt space, there's no plots of land. It's owned by Microsoft, and it's a free open platform for you to build, and so there's no limitations like that. So you can like put up an entire city in one of your worlds. Like I've built pretty large worlds in alt space.
That's pretty mind blowing. Actually, I have a a question for you, Dark Mist. Um,
Yes.
do you find like, because I'm assuming you're part of this, movie world of VFX and all this kind of stuff. Are you seeing a lot of people from your space moving into, virtual spaces or metaverses and that kind of stuff? Because I think you guys are kind of prime candidates, because I think you do span that, like you do create cities and worlds and stuff like that for these movies, but not necessarily constrained by real world stuff like traditional architects are. You design for like the kind of that space. So do you see a lot of people getting into that space, or?
Um, yes and no. The problem is the for the few that I know that are still working in the film industry, they are unable to get into this space. I was speaking to a friend from DreamWorks, and who's been very interested in getting into the NFT and the metaverse space, but they have to go through this extensive contract to, everything, so they cannot get into it. They're just kind of watching until
Is that because of like personal, like employment contracts stuff?
well,
or
Part of that, and also the fact that you can lose some of your best artists to the NFT. If you know, if
right?
yeah, if you have a studio, we had a and I'll tell you why the VFX and film industry has such a problem. The VFX artists, and many people don't know that VFX artists in the film industry almost go on strikes almost every year. Um, it's a very underpaid job, very time demanding. We were working about 70 hours a week, only making between $19 to $25 an hour here in LA, and there was just you would get the numbers coming in from films. I remember when we did I think when it really went down was Iron Man 3. And if anybody recalls from the award ceremony when the Avengers were speaking, Robert Downey Jr. tried to mention something about the VFX artists, and the music came on, and they called him off. So it's a pretty hard thing. So what if VFX and 3D artists from the industry get into this space with the skills and abilities they have and are able to, you know, do great in NFTs, these studios are going to lose a lot of artists. So there's very tight on that. Now, as far as the artists that were in the industry and are not in there any longer, I do see them coming into the spaces. More so I'm from the VFX world where we do a lot of destructions, magics, that sort of thing. But there are many that were also like environmental artists. You have to understand the concept in order to be able to mimic a lot of the physics in it. So I do see some of the artists from the space coming in, um, and I think they're very going to be very much interested in being part of the metaverse, and really because being part of the film industry is almost in unison with being part of the gaming industry. You get into one or the other, and the gaming industry folks are really going to be the ones that are going to be able to come in here and really do some work because they understand how it works, the triggers, and if you want to get like for me, if I'm getting into the spaces, of course I'll want to incorporate VFX. And so what that means is, can I figure a way to drive certain particles or certain magical elements so that if somebody's in my space, they get a chance to enjoy these sort of VFX platforms. So there are going to be many builders, I think, that come from the industry into this, uh, maybe even bypassing the NFT side part of this NFT arts of it. And I would think and hope that they should be, strong contributors in building up these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never knew that about the VFX industry. I mean, I think it's in a way similar to the architect industry. I think people often see architects as like these really high paid, doctors, lawyers, architects kind of thing. But yeah, it's probably a very similar story. There's definitely a movement in architecture of being overworked, underpaid. So yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it was kind of quite, I just assumed it was one of those like up and coming and areas within the industry. But yeah, I think that kind of skill set seems like it's going to be incredible for the metaverse. Like people like yourselves getting into that space, you kind of understand the environments already. A lot of these metaverses are based on game engines, so um, which are also used in the film industry. So it seems like a no-brainer. And also people from the game industry as well. I assume that VFX kind of world spans between film and game industries. I might be wrong there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, and for the world builders, I think some of them have had a hard time getting into the NFT space because um, they're more onto the environment and scene development. I myself that have created some of these worlds, I when I go into the space, I don't quite see how it can fit in unless it's just macro level nature element or and whatnot. So I think that's this metaverse is where these artists are going to find their niche, and the developers getting in touch with the world designers and whatnot, and world designers get in touch with developers or space owners can be very crucial. And because you have artists that know how to work with VR already. Reminds me, you're asking if there are people in that. So I did work with an artist back in the studio, and now she's into virtual production. And so she started to look at this kind of technology and how to utilize the stereoscopic, the virtual production, and get you into that realistic space. And so yeah, it's possible, and I think the people that are in the industry working on this type of magic, if they get out of it and come into this space and see, then it's going to really push things. And I was listening to Tim earlier about what he was mentioning. Um, he was earlier when Tim was talking about being able to just push the limits and the creativity aspect behind it. I think that'll be definitely crucial. I've seen Artsie's work, and Artsy is phenomenal in her place. And I was actually curious if Artsy, you came from a gaming background, or how you got into the world building background, because this is kind of like your time now, this whole metaverse thing.
I actually played a copious amount of The Sims since I was, I think maybe like 12, and it actually made me want to be an architect. And I actually just went to art school, but like that's as far as I went in gaming. I played The Sims, and building was my favorite part. And so when I got into alt space, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like VR The Sims, you know. And so that's where my love of world building started. But I wanted to just throw out that I am also on the team of NFT Oasis, and NFT Oasis is building the bridge to the metaverse for blockchain. So it's a interesting company to follow, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff coming up in the future with a marketplace to help all different creators on board to the metaverse in a pretty cool way. Um, and just helping people think of different ways, and kind of merging all of these different creative uh, fields in ways to bring them in. And so that's NFT Oasis. You can find them on Instagram. Um, and I think it's nftoasis.co if you want to check out their website.
Cool. We'll check it out. Check it out for sure. So we're coming up to almost 2 hours. We definitely didn't anticipate how popular this room would be. It's been incredible. I've learned a ton of stuff. There's still a few more people that have come up stage I want to get through before we close this room out. And forgive me because I'm like looking through the list. We've had a few turnovers, so a bit of turnover in who's come up on stage. So if anyone I missed, just quickly unmute yourself. But I think Courtney Wagner's next. Do you want to have anything you
We
want to add?
already do Daniel.
Oh, was there did I miss Daniel? Oh, is it
Yeah, we have
Daniel
Daniel next,
Escobar?
and then Courtney,
Okay,
and then Mehmet.
go for it, Daniel.
Hey, so I'm Daniel. I'm an architecture designer. I also studied computer science, and actually, based on what piqued my curiosity was what Tim previously said about putting like kind of like these unbuilt projects or like Diablo competitions onto like the meta world. That was actually something that myself and a group of other people, we kind of took a envelope project that we didn't win, but we launched it into Sunstar. We kind of went through like the whole process of making it kind of like a very interactive experience and adding all these special effects. So that was kind of interesting, and I realized that there's like a lot of potential to that, but we haven't kind of launched it in a fully sort of meta world level just because of the scale. It was like a massive tower with like a whole bunch of polygons, so we had to like figure out a ways to like kind of like reduce that whole complexity and make it like really interesting still. So that was something that we kind of like saw. But yeah, I was just like, I just wanted to mention that I found like what Tim was saying, like a great idea. That's something that we've kind of been looking into and how to like get more into that world to develop kind of like these cool projects that like there's like a whole bunch of designers online, like even like students and stuff like that. They're doing like great work that could be fascinating to like tour and like virtual reality.
Yeah, I think that really interests me, just like as putting the architect hat on, maybe even a competition in the metaverse. So like, it's actually judged in the metaverse, because you think the way that we communicate our ideas is usually like on a Volo is two, kind of long boards. That's all you have to communicate this quite complicated thing, this 3D thing, through a few images, renders, diagrams, all this kind of stuff. It might be really interesting to actually like competitions evolve where you don't have to waste your time doing all this production on images and stuff like that. People just go in the building and experience it, and like, you tour them through it or something like that. Maybe that's the next generation of competitions, although competitions are not a great thing in themselves, especially if you're not getting paid. But yeah, that's an interesting idea, like a metaverse competition environment, and then you just experience the thing.
Something that I was going to mention when Dark Mist was talking earlier, and it relates to what Daniel's talking about too, is this idea that we all always think that there's another profession or someone else out there who's perfect for the space that we're looking at. And in this case, everyone always says game developers. Game developers will be the best people to be in that space. But I actually don't think that's the case. I think every artistic person or creative person has something to contribute, and that's why I was mentioning the team earlier. Because if you have someone like Artsy who had a knack for architecture but had a different background, the fact that she can apply the two together is what makes her art so fantastic. The same will happen with Dark Mist. If you find a team where you have an architect who can help design the space, a game developer who can create it and make it real and add their finishing touches to it, and then you put your art into that space, you can actually start to view this as a world where you literally build architecture, you insert the art, and you sell every piece as different objects in that space. And I think for Daniel, what you're talking about with this whole idea of the Volo competitions, and for anyone who doesn't know, it's a high class competition for every architect around the world where you design the future of skyscrapers. Some of the submissions are floating skyscrapers that are very, very futuristic. And what comes out of it is they select 1 to 5 winners. The rest of that goes to the graveyard for architects, right? No one ever sees it. So the idea was, what if you take your submission that didn't make it to number one or whatever it is, and you literally build a world around it? And if you imagine that whole team idea as being the driving force for it, if you have a game developer who knows how to build worlds with low poly, you can literally share your ideas and create this world with a game developer so people can enjoy the unbuilt architecture. So that was the idea behind that whole Volo competition submission idea. And what Ali is saying is also really cool, where you can actually judge an architecture competition in virtual reality. I actually think you could take it a step further and say, what if you literally have design competitions that bring together developers who are in that virtual space, architects, game developers, and everyone else, and you judge a competition based on the design of a plot?
You guys should take a look at Mona, Filecoin Mona. They actually I think they just finished theirs, but it was a competition bounty for architectural designs to build part of their metaverse. That's
Oh, it's
awesome.
extended. It's extended to
Oh, it
November.
got extended? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really cool competition going in. In fact, I was about to enter it, but yeah. Anyway,
We should have teamed up.
yeah. See, that's the thing, and you know, and at some point I thought of even tweeting it, but I didn't. So this is kind of one of the important things about just sharing the concepts of what's coming up. And I've been in the Discord to kind of see what people kind of put their work in progress, and I think it's a brilliant idea. So what they're doing is they've held a competition for world building spaces, and the winners will receive they'll actually buy the space from them, and I believe for I think it's 35 USD. Three winners in the categories of classical, sci-fi, and nature. and then the second place, I believe about 7K. And then the idea,
Wow, that sounds super interesting.
yes, I know this is kind of something that probably should have been out there and discussed. It's really cool. And they had in their Discord, there's actually a channel where artists or different people could kind of link up to collab. Um, I, yeah, you know what, Artie, I should have told you about that too early. I think we could have teamed up on it.
I've
And
been
that
in the
kind of,
Discord for a little bit, but I've been a little bit uh, preoccupied with
yeah,
just all the stuff that I've been doing.
it's a little chaotic there, and that kind of reminds me of what Tim was saying, and that's what I was trying to remember. He was talking about the teaming, and I think that a lot of times with artists, some artists like myself, we tend to try to do everything, and we think we can, and so that I wanted to kind of ask you, like, what is a what is a suitable team? Because I'll be honest, I don't know what that team would be. Just hearing this conversation, I see how Artsy and I could have played together in it. But it's nice to have an understanding what a team would be in this sort of thing.
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, like I've never worked with someone like yourself, like a game, or sorry, like VFX specialist, and how could we collaborate on a real world architecture project, a virtual architecture project, or something like that. Particularly if like you specialize in, for example, the level or the environment, it would be really interesting. I think that's what Tim was getting at. If not, correct me, Tim. Because yeah, I think that there's some really interesting skills that kind of you know overlap with what you do. With we all spend a lot of time creating things in virtual spaces. Ours we try and get built. Yours go onto to cinema screens. Um, Artsies are experienced virtually, but we all have in common that we design in virtual spaces, in 3D spaces. So I think it would be really interesting to kind of collaborate beyond our pure um, professions and industries.
Yeah, I
Ollie,
think Ali definitely hit it on the head there. I think it's that you need to let go of the professional titles that you have and lean into a team that actually uses the skills that everyone has and expresses the artistic imagination of each person.
Two questions really quick. Could someone repeat the name of the competition? And also, I wanted to make a question about the low poly constraints. I was in another clubhouse room and they mentioned the um, 5G and how 5G will change the ability to have better haptic feedback or haptic responses where you can even possibly feel responses in real time, the way that you feel responses when you're on a PlayStation or Xbox console machine. You have the haptic feedback in your controller. Is 5G something that needs to happen in terms of rolling out the infrastructure for higher poly counts that the end user can receive better in their device? So I'm just throwing that question out there. Not sure if anyone else has heard about how 5G plays into higher complexity in the metaverse. And one final question, and I think this is pertaining to alt space VR in Artsy's experience. Has anyone asked you to develop cross chain environments or assets? I see some game tokens are kind of going in the direction of, well, you can have this game asset and take it to um, different metaverses, and it will keep its history and retain its data that was used in different games. So if anyone can comment on that.
We'll start off with the competition. What was the competition? I think it was Daniel mentioned. Or
you can go to forum.mona.gallery.
cool. There you go. Second question. I don't know if anyone can answer. Moses, your second question. Do you want to just? Is anyone got an answer for that?
I think his second question was about whether 5G will help with all of the low poly count models. And I honestly don't think that that's really the issue at hand here. I think the issue comes down to the databases that those particular metaverses are being stored on. I think it's both. That you need to have a bigger database in order for all of the models people are creating with high poly to be able to be stored. And then the second part to it is that you need to have people who are capable of having 5G to then load up all of the models in front of them, because it's not one or the other. I think you need both. You need a database and you need high speed internet.
Great point. That makes sense.
As for your last question, I don't know if there's anyone out there that can answer it. In the meantime, no, I think we. Oh, Artsy, were you going to jump in there?
As far as the alt space one, there I haven't had I've had clients inquire about moving assets from one place to another, but a lot of the clients that I've had in alt space don't like, they're not into crypto and NFTs, so that's not been a part of our conversations. I'm fairly new to the NFT space, so I'm, in that process of building models that can go from metaverse to metaverse. It's just that I'm in the process of educating myself and getting all of the information I need from all the different metaverses on what I can really translate from each other, because while most of them do use Unity, a lot of them use all of them use different versions of Unity, and they all use different SDKs. And to put something on a marketplace that goes to all of them kind of requires I'd either have to turn it into a GLB or a GLTF, and it loses some of the enriching quality that I have in my worlds in alt space, because not all of the platforms have environmental worlds. Some of them are just plots of land, and so I'm in an exploratory mode right now, just trying to gather all of the information.
So yeah, the just one random thing I'll jump into is from Old Space. Is that the one time I have heard of Old Space is I know Burning Man
I
hosted
was just about
event.
to ask you if you were a burner,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
did participate in Burning
yeah.
Man as a builder. I built five worlds for Burning Man last year. That was actually the connection that I had into NFT Oasis this year.
Cool.
Greg, the world builder for Burning Man last
Yeah,
year.
yeah. So
I'm
like,
working under him.
yeah, for those, I think they did it. Did they do it twice in a row? But yeah, obviously when
Yeah.
Burning Man was first cancelled, it was hosted virtually online via Old Space, and they had a virtual
Yep.
burn.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the only time I've heard of Alt Space before, actually. Um,
Yeah. And alt
we
space can be accessed through PC,
yeah,
Mac,
like people can
and
just
headset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. We will be trying to bring a physical art piece to Burning Man this year. If not, we'll do it in virtual reality. So Artsy, stay tuned. We might need your help. We might need
Yeah.
to.
I did an Afro galactic world for the Solar
Wow,
Shrine, which will be on Playa next year.
awesome, awesome. We'll have to check it out. All right, let's jump to I think what will be our last question from Mamuna. Good to see you again. Do you want to jump in and add anything to the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been a long time. So just a quick introduction. I'm an architecture designer, currently completing my architecture degree. Marina, I just had a very curious question regarding the competition. I suppose when it comes to Fortnite or Roblox, comparing with Metaverse, and how do you actually put those two in the space and in the digital space? Because the community building is absolutely insane. Recently, with the DJ Marshmallow, it brought in 10 million people, and with Ariana Grande as well. And recently with her, sort of the virtual world and building, and people moving through spaces and how that's sort of evolving and having a virtual concert. So I think that's what I'm trying to understand in terms of the competition. I know Metaverse has just been introduced, and it's a decade, or even more, it's going to take for it to be completely accepted and be used, more than what we're using right now. So yeah, that's my question really. I'm very curious to know what's the competition like.
Or do you mean like the competition of other people designing things, like the for example, for Artsy as an architect working in virtual space, the competition like that, or you mean the competition that Daniel mentioned?
Mostly what the metaverse has in hold, really, and what it is in comparison to Roblox or Fortnite or and competition in general, because that those are also sort of generating sort of influx of money and people buying spaces, and there's a lot of people hold sort of legal accountability for for what they're actually buying in the digital space. So I think that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm very curious to know that, and I'm still very new in this topic. So forgive me if I sound if my question sounds too different. Or
No, no, not at all. Um, I wonder, Artsy, would you be able to kind of touch on that? Like, do you find that there's do you see there's more and more people in this space, and like, there's more competition and things like that for the spaces that you're designing in?
Um, I think I think it's kind of I'm also a photographer, and I think it's kind of becoming like that. You know, like a photographer is born every second,
Yeah,
because of the access to
yeah.
um,
It
the
doesn't mean they're all
devices.
good photographers, though.
Right. And that's, that's a
That's the
larger
difference.
conversation. But no, I don't, I think we're still so early that,
Yeah, it's still fairly
there's,
niche.
there's, yeah. And like you guys have brought up, VR is not, it's not going to be the first, you know, wave of accessibility for people. I think AR, there's going to be more of a rise in AR first than VR, and I'm completely fine with that. I'm not a VR advocate where I'm trying to onboard, you know, millions of people to believe in the technology.
Plug yourself in.
And yeah, I'm not trying to convert people. There's a large group of people in alt space that, we have a family, you know. We care about each other. We've got community, and that's why I build in there. Um, so I bring people in from the outside just because I think there's great opportunities for people to showcase their work and have fun. But outside of that, I don't think, I mean, I have more work than I can handle at this point, but that's just because people are so excited to get in. But I think there are a lot of different avenues that are out here, and all these different platforms. There's plenty of room for everybody.
Yeah, I definitely want to tap into that. I agree that there's an avenue for everybody. I do see this as I think I see it differently because I do have that love for the technology a little bit. Um, and I think that, to your question, you asked about like Marshmallow and the area on a Grande. That was a couple of years ago. The Those things are happening, and so they're definitely taking on right now this weekend. We There is a metaverse music fest that's
oh,
happening
the
right
event
now.
was a month ago actually.
No, it's happening right now. And there are it's where people are world hopping. It's this weekend, and they're world hopping between different metaverses. So, it's we attended a concert for our friend Lauren, and I started this with that this room with that. She held a opera concert, and Artsy developed an opera stage for her, and she was able to realize her dream of actually performing in VR. And so it was absolutely beautiful, absolutely amazing, a very untraditional like event, but yet traditional in the same way that, there was a stage and she was on stage, and everybody's eyes were on her. Um, and it was captivating. It was really allowing us to be together in one space, experiencing the same thing, and not having to be there, because we were all spread out across the country, but all realized the same exact event at the same time. So it's really cool, kind of how things are going on. And I'll actually send you the link so you can go to that Metaverse Music Fest that's happening this weekend. And I will, kind of also say that these things are happening all the time. That's kind of why we started the Black Metaverse, because people don't know about it. You don't have kind of the in unless you're in. And these things are happening, and it's passing you by. And so, that's why we're kind of evangelists for the space right now, is to make sure that people know this space exists. This place is for you. This space is for you. So, if you have a VR headset, I definitely, if you have time tonight, try to pop in there. I know some things went down last night. I wasn't able to attend that one though. But they're happening in all the different metaverses around all these spaces in the decentralized plane. So it's really cool. And Artsy, I don't know if you want to say something about that. I'm sure you went, but I mean, like, there's a lot going on. So definitely stay tapped in.
Yeah.
I actually checked out the Ariana Grande concert.
Fortnite one, right? I was talking
Yeah,
about the
check that
Fortnite
one
one,
out.
not the Metaverse.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
So
I thought
that's
you
It
were
why I
talking
was
was
about the
very
Metaverse
confused.
Music Fest.
Yeah, it was the most recent one.
Yeah, most recent one, which was amazing.
Yeah, it was it was pretty incredible.
A lot of
I was
people
very
didn't like it,
inspired by
Flag. I'm
the
very surprised.
yeah, I was very inspired by the world building for that. Actually kind of blown away because I'm not exactly sure how they put that together. I'm not a Fortnite person, so I don't know.
You must get into it. Artsy,
I'm
I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. I can guarantee you that. So we're just having a
Yeah,
bit of a moment of gaming here.
yeah, I was inspired, but I see a lot of that happening in a lot of those spaces. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I know it's a lot of musicians are coming into the virtual reality space to try to revolutionize how performers uh, contact their markets, or interact with their fans. I'm working with Naughty by Nature on their metaverse in alt space, and their NFT drop as well. And so a lot of people are coming into this space right now, and being very creative. So I don't know if I would call it competition, but definitely it's intriguing.
Yeah, I
Stay
think
tuned.
the whole idea, I think the idea of music and fidelity is going to be major in this space, like Archie and everybody said. People will be listening and watching concerts, and there's some folks in the audience here that have messaged me about what they do in production and sound and recording. I think the whole metaverse is going to offer something really cool um, when it comes to concerts.
That's a whole other world to open up. I think Faisal is gonna close the room out with a last question. So Faisal, do you wanna put it out there?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Also, by the way, Mamuna, you should check out Sansar. They have a lot of concerts with a lot of artists. I think they have one every week. A lot of events or concerts. But yeah, I do have a last question. So, I'm usually asked what the future of metaverse holds, and I usually answer the same way. So I want to open up the room if anyone agrees or disagrees with me on this. Currently, I think the limitation with our experience with VR and the metaverse is that we're only really capable of simulating two senses really well, audio and visual, right? Through HMDs. But in the future, I think with technologies like BMIs, brain machine interfaces, for example, Elon Musk's Neuralink, I think we'll be able to simulate all senses, right? Visual, audio, taste, smell, touch, in an almost seamless way. In fact, the potential is that it could become so immersive that it actually becomes better than physical reality. Because right now, haptic suits and all the technology doesn't come close to physical reality. But once you're able to put a chip in your brain that actually simulates actual senses, that could become better than physical senses, right? Or physical simulation. So I want to ask if you guys see this as becoming the future of VR experiences or the metaverse, maybe not, next year, but maybe in 10, 20, 30 years, or if not, what do you see the future of metaverses holding?
I want to say one thing to that. If somewhere down the road that happens and someone sort of says, I would rather be with your avatar than you, and relationally or something, I just want to say further down the road from that, I believe things could change back to, and not leave this, back to, I would rather be with you than your avatar. So I can see what you're saying, but I think, yeah, okay, that's what I have to say.
Um, I'd like to answer that a little bit. I think, well, I think it'll take a moment because we have to still think about the devices and the access to it. Who's all? Yeah, I would say, you know, out of all my friends, 2% own Oculus. So that's gonna be a hard push right now. How do you get the general population to invest into these Oculus to connect to the meta world? Because at that point, we're really building for for ourselves that understand the concept or into the VR. And I believe RT said earlier that AR will probably take off first, and I think that would I agree that would probably take off first in the metaverse type of sense because of the accessibility to the glasses. You see, Facebook is already talking about the Oakleys, no Ray-Bans, and that accessibility will be a lot easier. I mean, you're looking at um, Snapchat and all these apps that are already projecting AR. So if you're able to go get your cool sunglasses or shades or glasses and project your AR, you can start to experience the metaverse in this sense. And then as it grows and the devices become cheaper and accessible for the general public to get into VR, then that would be then I could see that blowing up. So I think we still have a couple more years before it really picks up in that sense. They would just have to be such a huge hype, or I can anticipate. If you could even say if there's the way the setup is, if there was to be another pandemic in a couple of years, it would be at that perfect moment that people will start to connect in the virtual world being detached away. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Hi. I just wanted to say really quickly, I think that I disagree with the notion that the metaverse has a direct path to, um, uh, for example, that Neuralink or transhumanism. I believe that there are so many real world problems that Web3 and then decentralization solves, that that's what the general public will be interested in. How is this technology used to solve and help visualize and provide data and experiences on real world problems, including entertainment? Because I'm thinking of how does the CGI professionals start to disrupt going to the movie theater? I don't think that's necessarily something that you need a neural link for, but I do think a lot of traditional industries get disrupted um, along the lines of disrupting traditional finance with DeFi. And so I think the economic incentive and starting to solve humongous real world problems is going to take the forefront for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So I don't think the Neuralink project is specifically for VR or the metaverse. I think it's a, Elon Musk is doing it for a completely different reason, right? He's doing it because he thinks AIs are going to take over the world, and the best way to solve that problem is to interface with machines, and that's why he's creating the BMI. And also, it's going to solve other issues like neurological issues and whatnot. But I feel like in terms of our interfacing with VR, right? As we've spoken in this room, I don't think VR goggles are popular enough to bring in the mainstream into the VR and the metaverse world. I think we might need some other technology that does more than just introduce you to VR. So with something like Neuralink, because of the added benefits that it brings, I think that might be people's introduction into the metaverse or into VR. I know it's a very controversial perspective at the moment, but I feel like most new technology is, right? Mobile phones, computers, even the internet was very unpopular at one point, but people kind of were ushered into it carefully. So I feel like it could be the not the near future, but perhaps the distant future of metaverses and virtual reality.
I think
I
I'm
think
kind
I
of on a go on, Artsy.
I think I like me me and my boys Micah and Accurate down there in the audience. We watch a lot of movies in VR together. I watch a lot of sci-fi dystopian movies. That's like our favorite. And it's very meta, right? To watch that type of stuff with a headset
In the
on
metaverse. Yes.
in the metaverse, like in a cinema that I built. But it's you definitely see in all of these movies a trend, right? Like there's never a point where the entire population wants to be a part of it. And for those of us that really like the technology and we're not super opposed to being super immersed in it, um, definitely having access to all of our senses being plugged in, is definitely part of it's like the top experience. And so I definitely see that being like the pinnacle. Like everybody who's into this wants to be completely plugged in. And the people that don't want to be plugged in at all now probably won't want to be plugged in at all then either. And I want to preface by saying that I still love being outside. There's nothing that I've created in the metaverse that has beaten how I interact with the sun, or food. Like I've I think there's room for both. I think being obsessed with either or is a little much. I think it's nice to experience what technology has to offer, but also, to remember there's a true powerful, you know, spot that nature has in our lives. And so I think it's important to have balance between both.
Reality will
Talk.
prevail. Hopefully, is it? I feel similar. I think it's like it's super exciting from a technology perspective, but um, yeah, I still think I hope reality will prevail, um, and we'll span the two worlds, I guess. Um, yeah, I
So
see.
talking
The
about
Matrix.
possibilities, what made me think is, what if we can get dead people in the metaverse, in the sense we can analyze their WhatsApp chats or any data they have and put it real there in the metaverse in an avatar, and they're talking to us. Maybe that satisfies something, or some you know the existential question to all of us.
Well, if you
So
could do
That's
that, you could
that's
get people that,
interesting.
if you could do that, you could get people who aren't alive yet by
Yeah.
analyzing two people.
Oh no, there's
Yeah.
definitely TV shows that have
Stop.
talked about that. And people
It's
do
freaky.
not want life to go on
I
forever.
know.
Like
They
people,
don't, and they don't need
no,
it to either.
no.
So
Yeah.
there's someone that we met not too long ago, just to what Richard said, and then I wanna just respond to the other thing too. Um, there's a guy that we met that is actively, we talked about Second Life earlier. He is creating his space where, um, because he is an inventor, he wants to pass on his inventions to his family, to the next generation, so that they understand the process that he undertook to um, to kind of become an inventor and to create and craft his invention. And so he's got his avatar and he is programming the avatar with his thoughts. And his goal is to have it to be a space where his granddaughter can come back and talk to him, and kind of really tap into his mind. So people are doing stuff like that, and people like me think it's a little morbid, but everybody has their thing. And I think that that's what I want to say to the other thing that Faisal throughout. Everyone has their line, and so I think that for me, I am heavily into loving technology, love it to pieces, but there is a line that I particularly draw when it comes to chips and insertion inside of me. Even if it means I get to smell something in the metaverse. I think that there's a different way to do that somehow. And I've heard people working on things in some of the rooms that we have, so I'm excited about that. And I do know that we have some folks who do have chips in their hands already. So they are, both sides of that fence are there. But I also know that as a society, we have a technical revolution coming, and or technical evolution coming. And, that is going to disrupt the way that we think of work and the way that jobs are done traditionally. And so I think that this space is moving so fast, but I don't know that it's fast enough to get us where we need to be to be prepared for when that actually hits, and is kind of disruptive to the day to day. I do hope so, though, because the alternative is kind of not desirable. And in addition to that, anytime you have an evolution, there is the revolt. So there are the people who are going to be on the other side of that fence 100% and not wanting to partake in any kind of metaverse and no kind of technology. And we, there's a space for them too. So, I mean, you look at movies like Demolition Man and all these other kinds of things like Tron and The Matrix. Like, so we have visions and Terminator, just to put that out there. We have visions for what this could look like if it's done wrong. So we have kind of the blueprint for at least doing it the wrong way, and we just need to do everything that's counter to that to try to make sure that it's a safe place for people to live, work, and thrive. But also, we have a world that was given to us that we need to take care of and make sure that we enjoy also. So this is Nicole and my voice is resting. Thank you guys. This has been a great room.
I think that's a great place to maybe end things. I think this is almost too much food for thought in this room. I'm gonna have to go away and decompress and really think about it. But yeah, I've got to close out the room, guys. I think this has been super interesting. This has been one of our biggest rooms. Faisal and I were just talking, like, it's always the ones that we kind of just put together quickly that seem to be the most popular one.
More, please.
Yeah, we'll do another one on the metaverse then for sure. We'll be back next Sunday. We're actually going to talk about the future of Clubhouse for architects, but it can be kind of the future of Clubhouse for everybody. What do you guys think of the platform? Where do you see the platform going? Is the hype over? And just kind of have a chat with fellow architects of Clubhouse. So be sure to check in. You can follow our Instagram page at ARCHI-TECH.network. Otherwise, make sure you follow everyone that's been up here on stage. Artsy, Stefan, Nicole, Mamuna, Richard, everyone that's on the stage right now. They've all contributed some really interesting stuff. So thank you for joining us and sharing your knowledge. Be sure to give them a follow. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in some rooms soon. If not, we'll see you guys next week. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
guys.
Nicole,
Great
you.
room.
Archie,
Yep.
Stefan.
Have
It's
a good
12
one,
at the
Have a
night
good
everybody.
here.
one.
Thanks for joining us. Bye, guys.
Have a good Halloween. Happy Halloween. Forgot about that.